Hey there, welcome back. In this lesson, we are going to just jump into Figma, have a little explore, and see the main screens in Figma, and we'll get into a file and just explore the editor, make sure we're familiar with everything in the editor. So you want to head to figma.com, you want to create an account. Once you've created a free account, you'll then be redirected to this page. So this is going to be your main view in Figma. This is where all your files are kept. This is where you can access different teams. You can explore the community. So you may not have any files when you first started. If you start creating files, they will display here. By default on the free plan, all your files will be saved under drafts. But if you move to a paid plan, you can create projects, and within each project, you can then upload specific files or assign your specific files to those projects. Also, if you're on a paid plan or you're part of any teams, your teams will display here on the left-hand side. So this is a course that I had purchased previously, and here you can see there's different projects, so they will display as different cards, or we can do row view, and then you can click through and you'll have your specific files. So it's a little bit easier to organize when you're on a paid plan or if you have any team plans. But as default, they'll just all be saved to your drafts, either as a card or a list view. Here you can favorite files, so we can just hit the little star icon. I took it out of my favorites, star again, back into my favorites here. You can search your files, teams, or any people on your Figma account. On the top left here, we can just configure some settings. So you can change your icon, your theme, hit settings. So here are your general settings. There's one section here, new features. So Figma will often release features to beta. So you can actually make those active on your account if you want early access to some of those features. They may have slight quirks or little bugs, so just beware of that if you're switching those on before they're into a full release. And here you can see any personal access tokens, so you can have access tokens if you're going to link up the API. Community, so we'll jump into the community page in a bit, but you can see your public profile, you can change your handle, and here you can do purchases through the community, so you can just manage those purchases from this section, and then you can configure your notification settings. The top right hand side then, so this is where you're going to start a new design file. The standard design file button is just for a normal Figma design file. A FigJam board. A FigJam is a whiteboarding service that Figma offers. It's a good feature. It's good to use to whiteboard like within teams, so you can have multiple people in those whiteboarding files, but we're not going to cover that in this session. And imports here, so you can import files. So if you sometimes you purchase a course or purchase a UI kit, they'll send you a file and you can click import and open that file, and it'll open it up in Figma. So here in the bottom left, you can see explore community. So if we click on this, this is going to open up the community. In the community, there's going to be thousands and thousands of files. So you can search for templates, plugins, UI kits, all sorts of stuff, visual assets. And these are just files that the community have uploaded. So here, for example, if I was just going to type in UI kit, search UI kit, you can see all the UI kits are presented here. So entitled UI, that's a popular one. If I just click through to this file, this is their free version. And here, this will upload a preview of the file, so you can actually look at the file without downloading the file onto your own account. Here we just have our description, some more files from the creator, comments. So here you can see I can actually navigate my way around the file. So I can zoom in, I was just holding Command and scrolling on my mouse when doing that to scroll in, but we can also zoom on the left-hand side. Here you can look at different pages. So if I say come onto the colors page, I can actually navigate around the file before downloading the file just to see, is this the kind of file I want? If it is, you can click open in Figma, and that will actually create a copy of that file on your account. So here, when it loads, you can see that I have now got a copy of this file on my Figma account. So if I jump back into Figma, so you can see I have a copy of that file in my drafts here. So that's how you grab a file from the community. You can also get plugins, download plugins from the community, loads of stuff in the community. So that's a good place to explore. A lot of them are free. You can also purchase through the community also. So we're going to open up a file, click new design file. Here, this is going to be the editor. So this will be your standard view. Obviously, we don't actually have any content, so there might be some limited features present here. So I'm actually going to go back to my files and open up a file with some design elements in it. And you can see there's actually a few more items we will explore here. So this is the basic editor. On the left-hand side, these are going to be your pages. So by default, the pages will be hidden and you won't see any pages. So when you want to add pages, you want to hit this little drop down, press the plus icon, and that's just going to open us up a new page. Below the pages panel, we have our layers panel. So these are all my separate frames, which are separate little designs on the page. I'm going to click the drop down and you can see the frames I have within that frame, within the parent frame, and you can just nest down and see all the items within each of the frames. We typically use frames more than groups in Figma, and we'll cover that a bit more in the frames lesson and how to structure your frames in the layers panel. And here we can just toggle viewable or not, and we can actually lock frames so I can't actually move or do anything to that frame or that layer, sorry, with that lock icon. We also have search here, so I can search within this specific page. I can also search within my entire file. So if I search nav, you can see that's navigation. That's brought up some icons. And also in the left-hand panel, we have our assets tab, so you can search assets. So for example, I have a button in this file, so I can search button. It's going to display my button here. I could also search for, say I want to grab an arrow, chevron, I can type that because I have icons in this design file. So this is just how we search our assets. And we have local components, so those are components that are within this design file. So here I can see my components. I have a button, I have a logo, navbar, a few other ones. I also have icons, so Figma organizes these for us, but I can search for icons and they're all displayed here. Or I can type into search. You can also access public libraries, so libraries from different design files, and those will also display here. So you can actually search separate libraries that aren't within your specific design file. So a menu on our top panel here. So you can search for quick actions, a file. So these are standard new files, save and export. You can actually export frames to PDF too, which is a great feature. So if you want to send a client or someone a PDF, you can just export any of your designs to a PDF. edit. We'll probably cover some more of these in the future lessons, such as find and replace, where we have our usual copy, paste, delete, duplicate, select, etc. Views, so these are just going to be our views, so we can view rulers. You can grab rulers, which bring some measurements onto the page. You can just have a play around with those, see what ones you want to access. Zoom in, zoom out, go into different frames, go into different pages, all standard stuff. Object, again, we'll cover some of these in the future lessons because it'll make more sense when we have frames on the page. But we also have some standard ones like flipping horizontal and vertical, rotating, flattening, showing, hiding, locking sections. But some of these, such as auto layout components, we'll cover in a future lesson. We have some text options here. So you can bold, italic, different alignments. Again, arrange, so just how objects are going to stack on top of each other. Vectors, so you can create vectors in Figma. So say you're using the pen tool, you have two separate lines and you want to join those together, create a vector image out of the two lines. You can do that from this vector tab here. Plugins, so you can access some of your plugins, most recently used plugins, from this drop down here. So Unsplash is a great one. So if I just drop a frame on the page, I can come into plugins. If you haven't got any plugins, you can do find more plugins. This is one I've used recently, Unsplash. So if I click that, this little window is popped up here. So if I'm just going to search gradient, double click here. That frame I already had pre-selected, that's just dropped an image in the background of that frame. And you can see it here on the right-hand panel, showing the fill is an image. So that's a good display of how certain plugins work. So that's a nice, useful one. Unsplash, and all the images are free on Unsplash. But if you want to find more plugins, find more plugins, and you can search here, and they'll all display the results. And then you can just click on the results and then use that plugin in your file. We have widgets, preferences, libraries, all stuff we don't need to cover too much. Here we have our move and scale. So if I drop get rid of the plugin, frame, so I just hit F there as a shortcut to drop a frame, hit shift, and that's giving me a square. So that's even scaled. So by default, the move, I can just move with this cursor. I can grab the corner, bring it into any different direction. It's going to change the aspect ratio, so that's changing the length and the height and the width, sorry, independently of each other. I can also move left, right, vertical. I go back to a square, but I go and grab my scale tool. This is just going to keep everything, the aspect ratio of everything, the same. Okay, so that's just going to scale everything evenly, so I can't do independent widths and heights. So no matter what object that is, this could be for icons, specific designs. If you want to scale something proportionately, you can grab the scale tool. And we also have the scale panel here on the right hand side. So say I know I want it to scale to 1.5, the original size, I can do that. Or say I want it a specific width, and I want to make sure it scales evenly, I could do, say, 1200, and that's going to scale that object to that size. So that's a useful one to know, scale. But for the majority of the time, we just have our standard cursor. Here we have our frame, section, and slice. We'll cover frames in a future lesson and the power of using frames. Then we have our shapes, so rectangle, line, arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, and placing images and videos. Again, we'll cover these in a bit more detail in future lessons. We have pen, pencil. We also have text, so you can drop text. page. We have when we drop some text onto a page, we can search fonts here. So by default, Figma has all Google fonts accessible within every file. But you can also, if you have fonts in your stored on your computer, you can also upload those fonts to Figma and access those from here. So you can have custom fonts. And then we'll cover some more of the font variables in the styles lesson. Here we have favorites, so you can save some of your favorites and access them quickly. The hand tool, this can just be for navigating around the page. So this might be good if you're presenting to a team. And then we have comments here. So one of the really powerful features for Figma is how collaborative it is. So you could have multiple people within a file. You can invite people to a file. Other people may have invited you to their file or their team. And you can drop comments and you can tag members in here. You can tag members within this specific file. And this makes the design process really collaborative within Figma. So good feature to know there. At the top we have, this is just the folder or the main project that this file is saved to. So by default on a free plan, it will just be in drafts. But if you have a pay plan, you can change the folder, which you can do from this drop down. So you can move to a different project. So say I had a no-code MBA project, I can move it to that project. Here we have version history, publish library, export the file, duplicate, rename, delete from favorites, remove from favorites, delete, and you can change the thumbnail of a specific file. So I could actually set this, if I right click here, set as thumbnail, and that would set whatever frame I've selected as the default thumbnail in my main Figma view. Here so you can see my little avatar in the corner. This shows who's active in the file at any one time. So say there's multiple people in the Figma file. So multiple people can design in the file at a time, or even just navigate around the file and their avatars will display here. And say I wanted to show there was multiple people in the file and I wanted them to follow me around whilst I was designing, I would do spotlight me, and then their editor would then follow me around the file so they could all see exactly what I was doing. Share, I can share a file. I can do that with an email. I can do that with other people who have access to, I can see who has access to this file. You can change their permissions here so they can view, edit, add them as an owner, copy a link, and a few different options here. So you can copy a link, send that to anyone. Anyone with a link can access the file, or you can invite them, which you'll do via email. And this is how you can also publish this file to the Figma community, which means anyone on the Figma community could access this file. So say you wanted to create a UI kit, publish that to the community, you could do that from here. This toggles for dev mode, which we're not going to cover in this course. It's a little bit more advanced, so we don't need to worry about that. Present, so we could also present our file. So this is good for like a team view. And then this is how zoomed in we are on a file, but I can manually override that. I'm hitting Command and scrolling with my mouse just to do that quickly rather than toggling a number on the right hand side. So this right hand panel, this is our design panel. This is where we have more control over the design features, and also all our styles are held here. So if I haven't got any frame selected, I can actually access my styles. So you can see here text styles. So I have different heading styles. I have styles for body text, label styles. So I could add another style here, and it gives me control over the text properties. We'll cover this more on the styling lesson. Then I have a separate folder of new color styles, so I can expand these and see my different color styles I have within this file. Then I also have effect styles, so these are box shadows. So these are shadows that I use for specific cards. So let's hide all of our styles. If I then click into a frame, those styles disappear, and then we are presented with some more of the design features. So here you can see it's telling me the type of element I've used. So I've used the frame, and also expand that down and change it to a group or a section. But we'll leave this frame. We have our X and Y positioning, the width and the height of the frame, and then some more adjustments to a frame, which we'll actually cover in the next lesson. Then we have our auto layout panel. Again, we'll cover that in more detail in the next lesson. Really powerful feature, auto layout, so we're going to make sure we understand that fully. Layout grid, so typically some designers may use layout grids. I don't really use the grid. I can actually click through here and change it to columns. So say I wanted 12, I can change the gutter, so the space in between each column. And you can see that's going to give some structure to my page, so I can actually design around those columns. Some designers love using columns. They use them on all of their pages. Some don't. I don't typically use columns all that often because I know my spacings, I know my auto layout. So I just manage my designs that way. Here we have our layer blending panel. So I can click through the drop down, and that's going to give me different blending modes. We'll cover that more when we look at images in a future lesson. You can see differences it's making to the frame on the screen. And we also have our opacity. We can actually make the layer visible or hide the layer from this panel on the right hand side. Here we have our fill property, so I can change the fill of the main layer. Go to undo, but we'll cover this panel more in a future lesson again. Same with strokes, so we have our stroke properties. Again, something we're going to cover in the future. Here we have a selection colors panel, so this will just show us all the colors that are selected within a frame. So I have selected this parent element here, this parent frame, and this will actually show me all the colors that are active within that frame. But then if I say I nest down into a child frame, it's going to show there's less colors now within that selected frame. We also have our effect styles, so we can add different effects. We have drop shadow, layer blur, background blur, inner shadow. You click on the actual icon here, the element, and this will give you some more control to edit each effect. Again, we'll cover more of this in a future lesson. And then we have export, so we can export individual frames. So I'm going to click here, export, and I can actually see a preview of what will be exported, so that entire frame. You can have different sizes of export, so you can do 0.5 all the way up to 4 times, or we have 512 pixels width or height. It's our standard options, and we can export as PNG, JPEG, SVG, or PDF. And there's some color profiles here, options for our export. So that's our overview of the editor and the community. So in the next lesson, we are going to look at frames, how we use frames in Figma, why we use frames over groups typically, and start to work on some design elements. We'll see you there.